Welcome. My name is Lawrence Pugliese, and this is Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes. On today's program, we have Caleb N. Ginyard III to talk with us about his book called My Name is Caleb N. Ginyard. It's a compilation of thoughts and histories that come from his father, Caleb N. Ginyard Jr., or the second, and our guest, Caleb III. We're going to learn a lot about one of the most compelling and talented black vocalists in American music history, and also learn a little bit about what it's like to be the son of such an artist and what kind of positive and negative effects that has. A fascinating book we're going to talk about today on Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes with a fascinating man. To start off, I'm going to read an excerpt written by Mr. Ginyard II, or Jr. My name is Caleb Ginyard. In Calhoun County, way back out in the country, out from the county seat of St. Matthew, South Carolina, I was born the 15th of January, 1910. My mother was Liviana Ginyard. My father's name was Caleb Ginyard, the same as my name today. You get J. Caleb Ginyard from me. It means Caleb Ginyard Jr., but I only use the J for the junior. My father got his French name because he was from the French settlement of the Belgian Congo. All the slaves in the United States used the last name of the slave boss, and my father's boss's last name was Ginyard. I had 2 sisters and 2 brothers. One girl was a baby before I was born. She was only a little girl and only lived to 2 to 3 years before I was born. They told me this story after I was coming up into the world in my age that I could understand it. Her name was Little Tang. My older sister used to look after me and my younger brother, just like a mother. Her name was Elizabeth Ginyard. My younger brother was named Henry Ginyard. My older brother was a half-brother named John Felder. Caleb is a name from the Bible, from the story of Caleb and Lamar. The Bible history tells this, and Ginyard is from the French colony in the Congo in Africa. An excerpt here on Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes from the book, My Name is Caleb N. Ginyard. And right now, the gentleman whose words you just heard, you're going to see in a vintage video clip from the 1940s with his band called the Jubileers. This particular piece is called Brother Bill. Enjoy.
Me and Brother Bill went hunting in the woods in the eastern Maine. The reason why we went up there, we thought we could catch some game. Me and Brother Bill went hunting way in the middle of the night. We shot at something like a grizzly bear, and the doggone thing turned white. Oh, I dropped that gun, and the way I run. Brother Bill said, boy, what's the matter with you? Had he known like me, he'd have run some too. I run so fast, they say, they couldn't catch me all day. The way I run across that field, they couldn't catch me with the automobile. I dropped that gun, and the way I run. Brother Bill said, boy, what's the matter with you? Had he known like me, he'd have run some too. I run so fast, they say, they couldn't catch me all day. The way I run across that field, they couldn't catch me with the automobile. Me and Brother Bill were hunting in the woods in the eastern Maine. The reason why we went up there, we thought we could catch some game. Me and Brother Bill were hunting way in the middle of the night. We shot at something like a grizzly bear, and the doggone thing turned white. Oh, we dropped that gun, and the way I run. Brother Bill said, boy, what's the matter with you? Had it old like me, he'd run some too. I run so fast, they say, they couldn't catch me all day. The way I run across that field, they couldn't catch me with the automobile. Brother Billy got so excited, he really took a shot at me. That bullet fizzled past my ears and sizzled through a tree. I run so fast I was exhausted, my feet was dragging the ground. I said, look here, Big Feet, do your stuff because I'm Alabama bound. Oh, I dropped that gun, and the way I run. My brother Bill said, boy, what's the matter with you? Had he known like me, he'd run some too. He run so fast, they say, they couldn't catch me all day. The way I run across that field, they couldn't catch me with the automobile.
Welcome back. Once again, this is Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes. My name is Lawrence Pugliese, and today we have Caleb N. Ginyard III as our guest. You just got done viewing a clip by the Jubileers, which features Mr. Ginyard's father, Junior, or the second. And that tune was called Brother Bill from the 1940s, a movie clip. The movie name has gotten lost in time, but I'm sure you enjoyed it, and it's nice to have you with us today. Mr. Ginyard, it's a pleasure having you, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I was just reading the book. I've been reading it since you had so graciously given one to me. And today I woke up early in the morning and sat back just to refresh myself, and compelling piece of work.
It's a very good book.
I love it. So my compliments to begin with.
Thank you.
And I'd like to tell everybody how we met at the Scranton Jazz Festival.
Yes.
This summer over at Hanlon's Grove in Naog Park.
Mm-hmm.
You helped us out with collecting money for tickets.
Yes.
And you sat back and talked to us about some of the things that you've experienced over your life and told me about the book. Mm-hmm. And we decided to do this show way back in, when was that, August?
August.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's good to have you here, and I'm going to start asking you some questions if you're ready.
Okay. Sure.
All right. The first one, just to give people a little sense of your background. Where were you born and raised, sir?
Okay, I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, 211 Elm Street. Okay. Don't know too much about it because with my father performing, that's where he formed his first group. They were called the Royal Harmony Singers, which later changed their name to the Jubileers. He was moving around so frequently till we left in Florida. I guess I was about not even a year old. My mother picked us up. It was three of us at that time, my two sisters who were older than I am, and then myself, and we moved to Philadelphia. And between Philadelphia and New York is where I was raised.
So what part of New York?
We lived in Manhattan, 149th Street.
149th Street.
Is all I can remember. There was a school right across the street from us on the same street, and that's where my two sisters started school.
And you were still basically a toddler.
I was 2, 3 years old, something like that.
And your dad was performing,
He
traveling?
he was singing then for Arthur Godfrey. He did his radio show before he went to TV. And I used to remember him coming home in the big black limousine with CBS written on the side of the door. And we were on a 5-story apartment building. We were on the very 5th floor.
And you'd go back and forth from Manhattan to Philly, or you ended up moving back?
Well, we lived in Manhattan until he finally left Arthur Godfrey show to go out west after Arthur Godfrey begging them to stay so they would make the transition from radio to TV. And they decided they wanted more money, which he said he couldn't pay them at that time. But once they hit TV, they would be bigger stars than they ever were. And the money would roll in, but they were just too impatient. And they left and went west. And my mother was sort of laid back in New York. My father had a very bad habit of not sending money home. And it got to the point where the landlord told my mother if she didn't pay the rent, we had to leave. So we eventually had to leave there and go to Philadelphia, back to Philadelphia. And that's where my mother decided to stay.
And what years are we talking about now?
Now this was still in the 40s, because I guess when we got back to Philadelphia, I was about 5 years old. School, you had to be 6 years old to start first grade. So I had another year to go before I started school. And I stayed in Philadelphia until I was in my early 20s.
And from the book, I'm trying to recall, was it North Philly?
North Philly,
North
yes.
Philly.
Mm-hmm.
For those who are from Philly, who know Philly, can you be more specific?
It was 2408 West Ingersoll.
Okay.
And that was between 24th, 25th Cyber and Master Street is where I lived. And right down the street from us was the high school that we went to. It was called Vaux Junior High. And at 24th and Jefferson was the elementary school of which I started. It was called Reynolds Elementary School.
Now, what were those years like, the years that you can remember in Manhattan and Philadelphia? What were they like for you as a young boy?
Manhattan was a lot stranger than Philadelphia because the neighborhood we lived in was, from what I've been told, was such a bad neighborhood. We weren't allowed to go outside at night after dark because it was unsafe. And when my mother would let me go down sometimes and sit on the front stoops, and she would look out of the window to make sure no one would bother me. And I look at it now and saying, if someone did come by and bother me, what could she do? She's 5 stories up. But just knowing that protection of mom, was there, I sat on the steps. I didn't worry about it, and no one ever attempted to bother me, as I sat there and played.
And in your house, it was basically your mom at this point and your two sisters?
2 sisters, myself, my brother next to me, because he was born in Philadelphia. When we reached Philadelphia, then he was born.
Okay, so Lawrence, his name was Lawrence.
Lawrence.
He wasn't in Manhattan.
No, well, yes, he was in Manhattan, but he was born in Philadelphia before we went to Manhattan.
I got you.
And then this had me confused too when I was doing
No,
the
you
book.
went from Philly to Manhattan back to Philly.
Right.
Got you.
Because I couldn't understand where did Lawrence come in, and we were in New York, and if he was born in Philadelphia, when was he born?
Right,
and blah,
he's younger than you.
Until I finally put it together and got it. He was born before we went to New York.
Well, what was the family life like? Was it normal, quote unquote?
Yeah, it was normal. Dad came home. I don't remember too much of it. Dad came home from what my mother explained to me, and we had dinner and so forth and so on, and he would have the guys come over, and they would sit and rehearse.
The Jubileers.
Jubileers, yeah. And then they would go out on their jobs that they had to do.
And then at some point, the music, his artistry, took him away from the family.
Yes, when they went out west. I think that was the beginning of the breakup for my mother and father. They never divorced, but they just went their separate ways. She left New York and came back to Philadelphia, and he would come in, from what she told me, every so often he would come in. I remember him, I guess I was 10, 12 years old, the last time I remember seeing him, and that was in Philadelphia. And when he left that time, I never saw him again.
Okay, so you didn't have a big, and you go on to say in the book, it seems that the music was something that you're very proud of with respect to your father.
Now, yes.
But at the same time, it also pulled him away.
Yeah. I had a lot of hatred for him. My mother never spoke bad of him, only the fact that he didn't support his family. He chose to leave the family to do what he did in show business and not care about us anymore. And that's the part I hate, okay? I have always felt you're a man, you get married, or even if you're not married, you make a child, you take care of it. It's yours. And you don't walk off and desert it, okay? And which he did. And that's what I hated him for.
And you, at some point in time, came across this manuscript that your father had left. When that had happened, this was before he passed on or after he passed on?
It was after he passed on.
After he passed on.
Yes, the gentleman I dedicated the book to, Peter Grandiza. I had a friend of mine put some information out on the computer, who I was. I was looking for information about my father. I was doing research. And anyone that had any information kindly let me know. And he happened to pick it up. And he wrote back, and my friend called me and said, hey, we got an answer. And I went and looked at it, and it said, Peter Grandiza. He says, I have, your father sent me 3 cassette tapes, which he wrote his own autobiography. And I had my secretary, type it out. And he wanted me to do a book on it. And there were questions that I needed answered, within the autobiography, and I would write to him. And his busy schedule, traveling all over the world, by the time he got the message, it could be sometime 4, 5, 6 months before I hear from him again.
But he would have answers?
But he would answer.
What was his relationship with your father?
They were very good friends.
Very good friends.
And he says, before I could get all the things answered, your father passed away. So I shelved it. And he's a writer himself, very highly, honored writer, okay? And he said, I didn't have time, to do anything with it. He said, but now knowing that you were around, about your father, you could probably help me. And I said, yeah, that would be fine. And he lives in Wisconsin. And I said, well, we have to figure up a date that we can get together. He says, yeah. He says, I'll get back to you. So 2 weeks later, I get a vanilla envelope in the mail. I open it up. It's from Peter Grandiza. Open it up. It's first cover page said, Dear Caleb, it's Peter Grandiza. Just wanting to let you know that I'll never have time to do anything with this. And this is your father. This is his autobiography. You have all the rights to it. Nothing has ever been published or copywritten. I give you rights to royalties and copyright. And I said, wow, this is unbelievable.
That is.
So I started reading through it, and as I read through it, certain parts I laughed, other parts it amazed me that what he actually did. And when I wrote back to him and thanked him, I says, I have enough material here now to do a book. And he says, okay, I says, and I'm going to dedicate it to you. He says, why? I said, because you were good enough to give me the autobiography.
He threw the project in your lap, literally.
I says, otherwise, I'd still be out here researching, trying to get enough material to write a book. And he says, well, thank you, sir. No one has ever dedicated a book to me before. I said, well, you've got it now.
Well, did you have the intention before this connection with Mr. Grandiza of writing a book? You did have an intention of writing a book about your father?
Yeah.
Now, based on what I read here, was some of it because you wanted to compile this interesting, compelling history of a family member, as well as part of it being a personal quest for you?
Okay.
To understand?
I'll give it to you like I've said it to many others, see if you can understand it.
Okay.
I know who my father is. I wanted to find out who my father was.
I think I understand that.
Okay.
I think I understand that.
I went to my mother and I said, Mom, I said, it's nothing against you. I love you. You are my heart. I says, but I got this deep thing inside that's burning me. I says, I've got to know what Daddy did. I don't know him. I want to get to know him. And she told me, she says, okay, son. She says, but I'll have to tell you, it's in the book. I hope I can say it over the air.
You can say whatever you like.
She says, just want you to have one thing, when you dig up old shit, it stinks. And I looked at her and I says, yes, Mom, I understand what you're saying. And I think now anything I dig up, I can handle it, okay? And she says, okay, I thought one of you would come to me sooner or later, she says, and you have all my love, go do what you need to do.
Sounds like a strong and wise woman.
Yeah. So I began to do the search to learn who he was, because all I knew, my father sang. He sang with the Jubileers, and he sang with the Golden Gate Quartet.
And you didn't even know to what extent, what that meant, really?
No. A few years ago, at the college here, they invited Ira Tucker and the Dixie Hummingbirds up. And the gentleman that was stepping off the program for him got in touch with me. He says, I spoke to Ira, told him that I knew you, and he says he would like to meet you. He says he hasn't seen you in years. You were very little. I says, well, okay. Now, I knew of the Dixie Hummingbirds. I used to go and watch them when I was a kid perform in the different churches.
And they were an a cappella group? Or
no, well, at that time they did a cappella. Maybe a guitar, and that was it. And I said, yeah. I said, I'd like to meet him. So I was invited up, and he took me back in the dressing room, and he looked up and looked at me, and he said, I didn't know which one was Ira Tucker, and he turned around and looked up, and he said, boy, you got your daddy's eyes. And so I said, okay, you are Ira Tucker? He says, yes. I said, how are you? I said, I'm glad to meet you. He says, yeah, I don't think you remember me. He said, you were like 2, 3 years old. Seems your father and I were like this. And I'm saying, yeah, okay, because I've got many people. Oh, yes, I knew your father, and so on. I said, well, what was he? Oh, who was he? Oh, well, yeah, he was an all right guy, and that's all I ever got. And I figured, here's another story. And I said, yeah. He says, you don't believe me, do you? I says, well, if you say you knew my father, sir, you knew my father. He says, well, I used to be around your house all the time. He said, you lived on Cambridge Street in Philadelphia. Never told anyone that. And when he said Cambridge Street in Philadelphia, I sat down and said, you have my attention, sir.
that was the first time in Philly or the second time in Philly, like on Cambridge?
That was the first time.
First time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when he said that, I said, okay, this guy was with my father. And then he began to speak, and he says, do you know how famous your father was? And I said, well, yeah. He sang with the Jubilaires, and I just lately found out he had a group called the Dewdroppers. I said, and he sang with the Golden Gate Quartet. He formed a group in Switzerland called the Eternal Light Quartet, and he sang with a group in Switzerland called the Baronovas. I said, all that I found out. He says, no, do you know how famous he was? I said, I don't understand your meaning of famous. He said, okay, I'll tell you how famous your father was. So your father called us down in North Carolina and said, come on up to Philadelphia, the pickings are good. That means jobs anywhere. He said, we got to Philadelphia. Nobody could get a job in Philadelphia as long as your father was there. I said, get out of here. I said, you had the Met, you had churches all over the place that hired spiritual groups. He says, no, 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 no. If your name wasn't the Royal Harmony Singers, you didn't get hired. And nobody got a job until your father left and went to New York. And I said, wow. He says, now you know how famous. I said, yes.
And at that point, too, you didn't know about Godfrey,
no.
did you? Or?
Yeah, I knew about Godfrey then, yes. But I told him, I said, wow. I said, you. He says, no, I'm serious.
That's pretty impressive.
I said, wow. He said, when he went to New York, then everything opened up here and we could get jobs here. And he says, I'll tell you something else. Your father was the best rapper I ever heard, and I haven't heard nobody that could beat him.
You told me he composed a rap song back
Most of his stuff he did was rap.
And that was back
1936 is
1936?
when they started, yeah. And all the kids out today in the street think rap is new. It's not new. And there were groups and people who did it before my father did it. Good, because you had the Mills Brothers. They did some rap. They were long before my father. And that's who my father, the Golden Gate Quartet,
were influenced.
Were influenced by the Mills Brothers. Okay.
This is fascinating stuff, Mr. Ginyard. But I want to remind people you're watching Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes, and we have Caleb Ginyard III here at the table, and we're discussing his dad, his own experience as well, that is depicted quite eloquently in this book of Mr. Ginyard's. It's called My Name is Caleb and Ginyard. And it's a book that's written in 2 parts, really. His father wrote an autobiography that was found and put together by his son, who then wrote his own feelings and insights about how he felt as the son of this great black vocalist in U.S. music history. Fascinating stuff. I want to ask you another question, and then we're going to go to another clip. Now, you mentioned your father rapped back in the 30s. Do we have any clips to that effect, or is there any way we could...
Yeah, the CD that I brought, the very first cut on it is called Intro When Gabriel Blows His Horn. That was recorded, I got this from a transcript, one of the collectors I know has it. That was from a transcript of the Jubilaires done back in June 7th, 1944, the day after D-Day, the invasion of Normandy.
Well, can we hear a bit?
Yes, they do some rapping on that one. Right.
Yeah. Here we go.
Okay.
Caleb
here.
N. Ginyard Jr. II, this gentleman's father.
At this time, Columbia brings you the Jubilaires. We will interrupt the program to bring you any late news developments. There'll be a great big jubilee when the children all are free. They'll be singing, praying, shout hallelujah.
Okay. The next one is the rap, Old Dan Tucker.
Old Dan Tucker?
Yeah.
That's all right. This
It's
is nice.
Columbia bringing you the harmonies of the Jubilaires. 4 voices joining in new songs and old. 4 voices blending melodies soft and sentimental, rhythmic and rollicking. Yes, it's the Jubilaires to sing Old Dan Tucker.
And that's done with the hands, right?
Yeah, that's the horn instrument sound.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, and then this one that's coming up is the rap.
Is the rap? Let's listen to that for a few seconds, and then
Get out the way, old Dan Tucker. He's too tired to come to supper. Supper is over and dinner is cooking. Old Dan Tucker just stand and looking. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker. He's too tired to come to supper. Supper is over and dinner is cooking. Old Dan Tucker just stand and looking. Yes, I came to town the other night. I heard a noise and saw the sight. The watchman was running around crying, old Dan Tucker, come to town. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker. He's too tired to come to supper. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker. Old Dan Tucker just standing there looking. Get out the way.
that was your dad rap?
That's, yeah.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Before I forget, first of all, Old Dan Tucker, that's called.
Yeah.
Old Dan Tucker.
Yeah.
Rap from 1944.
44.
44. All right. How's that sound, Arnold, back there? Is it sounding good? This is great stuff. I'm so excited to be sharing this. Here's a question for you. How's this with the? Is this a good backdrop while we're talking? No? Should we? Okay.
Okay,
We're gonna
cut
try
it?
to leave. Yeah.
Okay.
Old Dan Tucker. That was the Jubileers back in 1944. Rap before 50 Cent or
Yes.
Grandmaster Flash or
Yes.
whomever you love today. We're going to go to a clip in a moment called The Preacher and the Bear by the Jubileers,
And
also from the
that's-
1940s.
That's also rap.
That's also rap?
Yeah.
But before we go to that, I want to ask you, and we're gonna end right now and then pick up after the song at the same question.
Okay.
What compelled you to write this book?
To let everyone who possibly buys it and read it know about the musical transition of people back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and to hopefully teach the younger people today, music didn't just start today. It was a whole segment of different people and different things happening for music to get to the point it is
There's
now.
a lineage.
Yes, yes. And as my father, as I told you, he did most of his stuff looking at the singers from early before him. And then
The Mills Brothers.
The Mills Brothers, the Five Blind Boys, all those type groups back then. And this is what they governed themselves on. And then other folks, I've met a lot of the doo-woppers, the groups, that I was pleased to walk up and meet them, because in the 50s when I saw them, you couldn't get close to them to even get an autograph. And now here I am personally entwining with them, and it just thrills me to no end. And I walk up glorified that, wow, here's whoever, from the Ravens and from this or that or the other. And they look at me and say, no, you're the guy.
Your dad was
If it wasn't for your dad, I wouldn't be singing. I said, man, get out of here. I'm glorified to know you're famous. You're the star. Okay, and I said, wow, I can't understand this.
That's pretty
But
incredible.
it's really exciting, and I want the younger people to understand, hopefully, what the music was, you know, and what it is.
And is there also, I mean, from my reading of this, I see that history, that lineage that you're sharing,
Yeah.
but I also see a really compelling, touching, and intelligent story from a young man who grew over the years trying to understand, to the man I have sitting here with me today, why his father chose the music instead of him. And that is just as compelling to me in this book. And I think it's just as useful for people who read it.
Right. I was speaking to a young lady, and I was telling her that I was trying to find out what the force was behind my father to make him do the beautiful things he did as far as music was concerned and forget his family. And she looked at me and she said, the same force is driving you to find out who he is. And that just turned my whole life around. And that's when I was able to look at him and look at the things that he has done and begin to love. And the hatred began to pass off. And at the end of the book, in my segment, I make the statement that it says in the Bible that you honor your mother and father and your days will be long upon the earth, and which I do. And I make the statement that no matter what your mother and father did or what they are, you should not hate either one. You should love them, just as the Bible says. And hopefully that will help other kids that have the same problem that I had as I was growing up. Beautiful mom at home, a dad that I didn't like, okay? And I guess each one of the kids have their own feeling about him, you know, themselves. But this is just my feeling. And I'm hoping that that will show them that they can still love their mother and father, because if it wasn't for them, they wouldn't be here.
Very wise, sir. And we're going to get back to that in a moment. I have a lot more questions. Thank you for being here, by the way.
Oh, it's a pleasure being here. I'm enjoying this.
It's a pleasure having you. This is Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes, and I have Caleb and Ginyard III here at the table. Right now, we're going to see another clip from the 1940s of Mr. Ginyard's dad, Caleb Jr., or the second, with his band called the Jubileers. This particular track is called The Preacher and the Bear. Enjoy.
That's the only time we really John and brother, that's the only time we really why don't you give it, that's the only time we really John and brother, it's good enough for me, my Lord, that's the only time we really John and brother, that's the only time we really why don't you give it, that's the only time we really John and brother, it's good enough for me. Yes, just come on, brothers, if you want to hear a story about that preacher and the bear. Gather round, boys, I don't want you to miss none of this here story, cause it goes like this. A preacher, he went out to hunt. It was on one Sunday morning. Though he was one Christian young man, but he took his gun along. Well, the first thing he shot was a bunch of fine quails, and he shot him a nice fat hare. Then through the woods on his way back home, he met a great big grizzly bear. Then the Reverend fell down upon his knees. He sent up a great long prayer. Whilst he cast one eye to the heaven on high, but kept the other eye on the bear. He said, the Lord delivered Daniel from the lion den, Jonah from the belly of the whale. The three Hebrew boys from the fiery furnace said a good book do declare. Now look here, Lord, if you don't help me, don't you go to helping that bear. He needed that the only time we really lived. Johnny needed that the only time we really lived. He needed that the only time we really lived. John and brother, it's a good enough for me, my Lord, that's the only time we really lived. John and brother, that's the only time we really lived. Why don't you give it that the only time we really lived? John and brother, it's a good enough for me. Yes, then the bear walked out in the middle of the road. Up to the Reverend walks he. That Reverend laid his religion down. He climbed up a tall pine tree. Yes, he climbed way up to the top of that tree and climbed out on a limb, whilst the bear sits down so endlessly and licked his mouth at him. Around about 3 o'clock, the old limb broke. Reverend came tumbling down. Boy, he grabbed his knife, he cut the bear 10 times before he struck the ground. He needed some old time riddle, Johnny needed some old time riddle. He needed some old time riddle, John brother, is good enough for me. My Lord, that's old time riddle, John brother, that's old time riddle. Why don't you give me that old time riddle, John brother, is good enough for me. Yes, then the bear reached out to give the Reverend a hug like you would hug a long-lost friend. But old Reverend put on that disappearing act, he went splitting through the wind. Old Reverend went to running like an old hound dog, trying to overtake a hare. He went home, went to bed, and took 6 naps. Before his shadow got there, he had that old time riddle. Johnny had that old time riddle. He had that old time riddle. Johnny brother, it's good enough for me. My Lord, that old time riddle. John brother, that old time riddle. Why don't you give me that old time riddle? Johnny brother, it's good enough for me. See, brother, the preacher made a touchdown.
Welcome back. My name is Lawrence Pugliese. This is Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes. And I just got done viewing a song called The Preacher and the Bear by the Jubileers, a great, great band, vocal band from the American history of music, and a significant part of our musical lineage as well. At the table, we have Caleb N. Ginyard III, the son of the front person, I guess, of the Jubileers, right? An icon in music. Right now, sir, I want to ask you another question relating to your book and your experience. Was it hard at times when you were working on the book, as your mother had put, so I thought succinctly and right to the point, for you to delve into the past and find out some things that you never knew before?
Yeah. One of the things that I did come up with, I learned that I had 2 half-sisters in Sweden. The story on that is when he left the United States to tour with the Golden Gate Quartet back in 1956, he met a young lady in Sweden when they were there on tour and fell in love. They came back to the United States for a short time, and then they went back to Switzerland. He called her and asked her to come to Switzerland, which she did. And while they were in Switzerland, he got married. And the leader of the group, Orlandus Wilson, was a bass singer. He was also the leader of the group. He asked him if he would stand in for him, which he did. And he had 2 girls by this woman.
And that was difficult. Why was that difficult for you to realize?
It wasn't really difficult for me because I believed he had some kids out there, and I have a feeling there may be more. But these are the only 2 that I've found so far. My mother, the only thing she did say about him was that he loved running around with other women. And
sounds like it sounds...
That put it together for me that he had the 2 kids. And I finally got to speak to the bass singer of the Golden Gate Quartet. He answered a lot of questions for me too, because my father had been with him for so long. And he asked me, he says, "Caleb, were your mother and father divorced?" And I said, "No, sir." And his words to me over the phone was, "Oh my God."
He didn't realize.
He could have went to jail for a long time. I says, "Yes, I think he could have." I says, "He never said anything to you about not being divorced?" He says, "No." He says, "All I ever knew was that he had a family in Philadelphia. And that's as far as he'd ever want to go to talk about it. If you tried to push, he got angry and, wanted to fight or whatever."
He didn't want to bear too much about that to his friends.
He says, "All we knew is that he had a family in Philadelphia." And I said, "Oh, okay." But he says, "I can't believe it. He could have gone to jail for a long time." And I said, "Well, who over there was going to ask him if he was ever married?"
Right, exactly.
I said, "I don't think too many people." Okay. No. At least not the police or the courts or whatever, When he went to file for a marriage license, I'm sure they weren't going to ask him,
How did your siblings deal with it?
My older sister still has a problem with it.
Yeah.
The others got no pets. It happened. And I got to, last year, Clyde Wright is the name of one of the gentlemen in the Golden Gate. He called me up and he said, I'm doing my 40th year in show business, and we're giving a big show here in Paris, France. I'd love for you to be here for the show. And I said, wow, how am I going to get to Paris, France? I'm retired. I don't have no money. How can I swing this?
You used to work for PennDOT?
I used to work for Pennsylvania Turnpike. So I called my sister in Philadelphia. I said, how would you like to go to Paris? She said, what's going on? And I told her. She said, oh, wow, yeah. Have you ever been to Paris? She said, no. I said, well, me either. It'd be a first for both of us. So she said, well, when are you going? I said, I'll get back to you on that. So there was a company here that I had taken a loan out quite a few years ago, and I paid it off. You know, everything was fine. Oh, anytime you need money, come back. So I said, well, let's go see what they're going to give me. So I went back and they said, what would you like? And I told them the story. I said, I would like to have $3,000 so I can go to Paris. And they said, sure. Yeah, you want any more? I said, no, just $3,000. That's all. That's how I got to Paris.
And this gentleman that invited you?
Excuse me.
Sure. His significance?
He was the second tenor of the group.
Of the Jubileers?
Of the Golden Gate Quartet.
Of the Golden Gate Quartet. They were after the Jubileers?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my sister and I packed up and went to Paris. And at the show, which I didn't know at the time, he introduced me, had me come up on stage, and he introduced me to the audience. And,
how many people?
Oh, it was, I guess, close to 2,000-3,000 people in the auditorium. It was one of them huge jobs in Paris, France.
Must have been beautiful.
So I bowed, and they gave me a standing ovation. And I was, oof. Says, all right, my dad was all right. You know?
It's amazing how in Paris they appreciate and know more about American music than we do here.
Than we do, yes. And then he said, and I have another surprise for Caleb that he doesn't know. He says, look right down there, Caleb. He said, there's Kathleen and Jenny. That's my two half-sisters.
Wow, from Sweden.
From Sweden. And I said, wow. So I got to meet them. And then he said, okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be our last song, and it was nice of you to come out, and so on, so on, so on, so on, so on, so on. And I said, okay. I said, I'm going to lay backstage here for you. He says, no, you're going to stand here and sing.
Had he ever heard you sing before?
No. Well, yes, I sent him a tape once of these songs that I did for my father's award show here.
Right.
And he says, you're going to stand there and sing with us. And they stood me in the same position my father stood in the group.
Wow. And
looked at the baritone. I says, the only place I can go is your note. You have a problem with it? He said, I have no problem with it. I said, okay.
What was your father?
He was 6 feet tall.
No, I mean...
Oh, he was baritone.
Baritone.
Yeah, he was baritone. So I stood next to the baritone and the bass, and we got to singing. I can't today tell you what the name of the song was, but I knew the words to it.
It just kicked in like...
And I started singing, and I'm listening to the baritone, and every note he hit, I was ting, ping, I was right with him. When we got backstage, he said, boy, he says, you're all right. I said, well, thank you. I said, man, I hope you didn't mind. He said, oh, no. He said, I enjoyed it. He said, every note I hit you, I said, well, I told you I was going to be on your note. And he says, you as good as your father.
How did that affect you?
I got weak, you know, and I said, oh, wow. I said, but come on, no. I said, I can't touch my father. He says, no. He says, your timing, your rhythm, your note, your voice, right on key, everything. I said, well, thank you. I said, and thank you for thinking that I'm as good as my father.
And when you were, the reason I'm bringing this question up, it comes back to something you said in the book. Yeah. When you were an adult male, you and your father never really spent any time together.
No.
So hearing this probably gave you some mixed emotions.
Okay.
I would imagine.
I was in my 20s, late 20s. I found out my sister was writing back and forth to him. So I asked her, I says, give me his address. She says, yeah, he's all the time asking for you guys to write. I said, well, give me the address. Because I was at the point now in doing this research, my main goal was to meet him, stand in his face, scared to death, and ask him why. Okay? Father's a big man, all right? And that was taken from him because he passed away. But I began to write him. I told him, Dad, I'm singing. I'm in show business, well, not show business, but I perform and blah, blah, and sent him some pictures and what have you. And he wrote back, wow, it's all right. And then I got another letter saying, son, it's good to hear from you. Since you're in the business, you know how it is between jobs. He said, Dad is between jobs right now, and I was wondering if you could send me $50 and I'll send it back to you double when I do my next gig. And when I got the letter, the anger just boiled. And I thought to myself, how could you dare to ask me for $50 because you're down a little bit? Where were you when Mom was out scrubbing floors trying to make enough money to feed 5 kids? And now you want me to send you my, no.
Did you tell him this?
So, no, I never wrote him back. And then I get from my sister, she calls up and she says, I got his phone number. I just spoke to him the other night. I says, give me his phone number, because I'm boiling now. I'm going to call him up and give him a piece of my mind over the phone, okay? I called up, not knowing the difference between time, okay, because I never studied time in Paris in the United States. So here, Saturday evening, after 6, where you made a long distance call, it was cheaper. So I feel, okay, waiting after 6 is not going to cost me that much. I'm going to call and give him a piece of my mind. So I dialed his number. And fortunately, he answered, hello. And I said, Dad, who is this? And I said, this is Bobby.
That was what most people called you.
Yeah. What are you calling now for? Why don't you call back at a decent time? I have to go to work in the morning. You know how late it is? I said, no, sir. It's 1 o'clock in the morning here. And I said, oh, click up the phone. I said, okay. That's the last time I heard my father's voice. And it's the last time I communicated to him, with him, okay? And it really made me feel bad for a long time until I started really getting into this.
So this book acted as therapy in a way for you.
Yes.
And now you've gotten beyond that, and you've got a better perspective on your dad and.
That's my father. I love him. Nobody can top him.
And why is it important for people to understand that that's a good place to be? Because some people say, how could you get over that? Why should you get over that? Why do you think it's a good place to be? It's an important place to be. Loving him and letting
honoring thy mother and father. That's where it takes me back to. Every now and then something will come up as I'm out fluttering around the towns that my sister calls them apron strings. Every now and then I will realize that it's an apron string that I haven't cut yet, and it's anger. And when I feel it, I stop right away and I think back, honor thy father and mother. And then I grab a pair of scissors and reach back and go click. And that hatred is gone.
And you just feel it's healthier that way?
Yeah.
On an emotional level?
Right. And to look at him now, anytime I hear one of his songs played, I'm feet are moving or head is bobbing with the beat of the music. Because I think he did a great job in the things that he did.
Well, you know, Mr. Ginyard, I think today you've shared a lot of yourself here at the table, and in this book even more so. And I am truly indebted to you to come here and share.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I wish we could talk some more. We're going to have to do part 2. All right?
I would too. I am still working, researching. I'm still finding information out on him. And hopefully, when I get enough of that, I can put the rest of the book with that.
Now, if people wanted to pick up the book, how would they do so?
It's on sale at Barnes & Nobles in Wilkes-Barre, and also Tudor Bookstore in Kingston. Wayne's World up in Pittston. I have some on sale there. I got to get back to him. I don't know if he sold out or not, but
It's a matter of getting the message out that the book is there. I suggest you pick up the book. It's a fantastic book. It's called My Name is Caleb N. Ginyard, and we have the author, one of the authors sitting right here. The other has passed on. It's his dad, Caleb N. Ginyard II. We're going to see two pieces now after we're done talking with you here on Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes. One is from 1969. It's called Shadrach, and it's from a TV show in Holland with the Golden Gate Quartet, Mr. Ginyard's dad.
And he's doing rap in this one, too.
You're doing rap in that one as well. And then the second piece is from 1998. It's called I Know, and Mark McGlory said it's one of the saddest songs he's ever heard. It's Caleb N. Ginyard III, the gentleman sitting right here, performing at the United Group Harmony Association Awards in 1998 in honor of his dad. He was asked to come on. His dad got an award, and he sang this song there, and this is footage from that particular event. Again, sir, thank you so much for being on the program. And I want to end, well, you have something to say?
No.
Okay.
Just that, I was waiting for you to finish.
Well, I'm going to finish off the show with your words.
Oh.
I'm going to read them.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a pleasure for me being here, and I'm pleased that you asked me. And I'm at your disposal if you
I'll be calling you again, sir. And if you have an idea you want to share on the show, let me know.
Sure.
Pick up the book, Mr. Caleb N. Ginyard III. Thank you, sir.
Oh, it's
been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And here are his words. I lost my place. Can you believe that? Hold on. Help me. Will you edit that out? Please do. Okay. Here it is right here. So, to all of you who read this book, I would like to say, honor your mother and father for whatever the situation might be. Love them, and you will find that it will be much easier for you to love. Very wise, very poignant. You've been watching Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Please tune in next time. We'll have our Halloween show with Dr. Hammer and Anastasia from Lugosi's Morphine at the table, and also Lugosi's Morphine performing. We have Senor Stavala as well, sharing a recipe specially designed for Halloween. And I should mention, we haven't figured out the locale. I said the table, that's a figurative reference. We're trying to go on location somewhere. We're not sure where yet. So if you know of a place that would be perfect for a Halloween show, give us a call here at the station, ask for Mark, or email me. You'll see the email address at the end of the show. Once again, I'd like to thank you for watching, and thank you to Caleb N. Ginyard III. Here is his father and himself in sequence for your enjoyment. Take care.
Was three children from the land of Israel. Shack-a-rack-a-beat, shack-a-bet-a-go. Took a little trip to the land of Babylon. Shack-a-rack-a-beat, shack-a-bet-a-go. Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon. Shack-a-rack-a-beat, shack-a-bet-a-go. He took a lot of gold and made him an idol. Shack-a-rack-a-beat, shack-a-bet-a-go. Then he told everybody when you heard the music of the cornet. Oh yeah. Told everybody when you heard the music of the flute. Then you told everybody when you heard the music of the horn. Good God, then you got to bow down and worship an idol. Shack-a-rack-a-beat, shack-a-bet-a-go. But the children of Israel would not bow down. Shack-a-rack-a-beat, shack-a-bet-a-go. Couldn't fool them with the golden idol. Shack-a-rack-a-beat, I said you couldn't fool the children with the golden idols. Then the king put the children in the fiery furnace. Then he heaped on coal with red hot brimstone. Great God, made it 7 times hotter, hotter than it ought to be. Even burn up the soldiers the king had put there. Then my God sent down an angel, then to give him a couple of wings. He went walking down in the middle of the furnace and began to cool the flame. The children, they got so happy, they went walking right through the fire, just laughing and talking about the power of the gospel. Then old Nebuchadnezzar said, hey there, when he saw the power of the Lord. Then they had a big time in the land of Babylon. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
That night, oh, when first we met, I fell in love with you, and now I simply can't forget. I can't forget. Oh, darling, but if we never meet again, but I know that my love will follow you as the years go passing by. So, darling, I know, oh yes I know, that you and I will never meet again. For you were meant for somebody else. Somebody else. Oh, darling, but if we never meet again beneath those moonlit skies, but I know that my love will follow you as the years go passing by. Oh, darling, I
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ships, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Caleb Ginyard III.
Thank you.
Ships. Wonderful. Thank you so much. You did your father honor tonight.